Hello there, friends. It's Ashley here from the Loopy Lamb and theloopylamb.com, and thanks so much for stopping by the channel. Today we're going to take a look at Filet Crochet to Wear Beginner-Friendly Patterns for Filet Crochet Clothes by Lauren Willis. We're going to be diving into this collection of designs to discover what's included in the book, meaning patterns and supports, what skill level you'll need, what sizes are included, and more. And thanks to the publisher, I have a copy of this book to give away to one lucky winner, so keep watching to learn more about the book and how you can enter to win. So very quickly, I wanted to explain what is filet crochet for anyone who might not be familiar with it. Filet crochet is a traditional crochet technique that creates a mesh-like fabric using double crochet stitches and chain spaces. And they are usually used to create motifs that like hearts and different things in your fabric. These are historically made using a single color, and they're usually for home decor projects like drapery, table coverings, doilies, and those kind of things. But Lauren has given us a modern take on filet crochet by making it something we can wear. And I love this cover image. It's a beautiful sweater, and I can't wait to show you the designs inside. So there are 14 crochet patterns for garments in this book, and I'm not going to read the list here because no one wants to hear me list them off, but you can see the list here, and if you want to read through the whole list, you can find that in the written version of this review on my blog, which I've linked for you below. The patterns offer a wide range of different kinds of motifs. There's Christmas trees and honeycombs, diamonds, and some like chevrons and different things. So each sweater gives you a unique motif in your garment that I really enjoyed. I really liked the pops of color here that we see in the Baubles and Chic cardigan. And there's a cloud busting vest here on page 64 that I really liked the look of because I think it's really versatile, and I would love this for fall, just throwing on to go out. I really liked this one. Now, there's not a lot of options for warmer weather garments. Most of the garments do have long sleeves. And so there is one summer garment, and this is the Dill Pickles tee. It's sleeveless. The front has a lot of venting, as you can see, for lack of a better term. And so this would be really great for warmer weather. However, with the projects being made with thicker yarns, they're primarily made using DK size 3 or worsted Aran size 4 weight yarns. So they're going to be heavier garments. And although we've got, as I called it, venting with the filet, the long sleeves and the weight of the projects are going to make them warmer. So it would have been nice to have some additional lighter pieces like tank tops and other tees mixed in. However, the collection is still really versatile. The patterns themselves are pretty straightforward, though I really wish that they had utilized some color coding or anything to make reading the patterns easier for beginners, as the book is saying it's meant for beginners, because some of them just look like a wall of text, which could be intimidating for a beginner, or even just including a little blurb about how to read garment patterns for beginners would have been helpful. But the patterns themselves are pretty straightforward, especially if you have garment making experience and garment pattern reading experience. I really love that the patterns in this book are size inclusive, and that means that they're available in 10 different sizes. So we're looking at sizes extra, extra small up to 5XL, and the measurements are given in both inches and centimeters. Page 10, I find, is a really important page, and I recommend popping a post-it note or bookmark onto this page, because you're going to need to flip back and forth between this when you're going to be choosing your sizes for your garments. Because when you take a look at your actual patterns, each pattern has one of these size charts, and this gives you the finished garment measurements. Page 10 says what size those measurements are to fit. So you need to know what your body measurements are in order to know how this is going to fit. Now, sizing is touched upon here again on page 10 with some very general information on picking a size. I wish it was more in depth to make it easier for folks making their first garments or those needing additional support to choose a size, because there's nothing in here about like how to measure your body to know that you've got the right sizes. And there's something called ease, which is the difference between your body measurement and your finished size measurements of your garment. And this determines the fit of your garments. And somebody explained to me once that it's the amount of room that you have to move around inside your garment. And that's what I always think of ease as. Now, while it's briefly touched upon, expanding this more in depth would have been incredibly helpful, again, especially if this is your first garment, because the ease does vary per size, and understanding how that works and how that fit changes would have been really helpful, again, especially for beginners. And we've got so many beautiful pictures in this book of these models wearing the garments. I just wish that there was a note that said, like, model is a size extra large, and she's actually wearing the size 2XL, or the bust measurement is this is the size they're wearing, so that you have a visual representation of what this fits, right? Like, so how it fits, because 4 inches of ease, which is great that you can figure that out. But what does that truly mean? What does that look like on a body? And again, as a beginner, it's so abstract a concept, it's hard to understand. The patterns in the book are written using the US terminology, and you can find your chart with the UK equivalents found on page 9. Also on page 9, you're going to find the abbreviations list and a chart symbols legend to help you understand what these charts mean that are included with every pattern in the book. In terms of materials that are used, all the patterns use either a DK size 3 weight yarn or a worsted weight or a rawn weight yarn, which is a size 4. And they really only use one line of yarn, which is the Paintbox brand available at lovecrafts.com. And so they use Paintbox Simply DK or Paintbox Simply Aran. And all the patterns only use 2 hook sizes, 4mm or 5mm. And I do recommend that, even though those are the recommended hook sizes, you're going to need to match gauge for these patterns. So you're going to likely need more hook sizes than that, because hook sizes given in garment patterns are just a recommendation. You need to adjust your hook size in order to match the gauge. Now, gauge is talked about very briefly in the beginning of the book here. I think it's on page 8 or 9. Yeah, on page 8 here, they do talk about gauge and how, it's important that you match it for your garment. They do give some tips about making adjustments, which is helpful. But I really wish it explained how to do a gauge swatch, that blocking your gauge swatch is necessary, because as a beginner, I wouldn't know that information. So it's assumed that you know that information. And if I'm a beginner, or giving this book to a beginner, I don't want to assume they know anything. So the main supports for makers are found at the beginning of the book, as I've touched upon briefly already. Again, they talk about color choices, gauge, then they talk about filet crochet facts, reading charts, and sizing and adjusting patterns. And they're covered, all those areas are covered in a really high level, not enough detail or information that would suggest to me that a beginner would have everything that they need to make these projects without needing to find an outside resource or doing some problem solving on their own. In the back of the book is the general technique section. We're getting there. Is the general technique section. This is fairly straightforward, easy to understand, and all of the stitches are accompanied by these illustrations over the images. Now, the one set of instructions that I thought could have been better accompanied or better supported by actual images is this foundation double crochet. Again, if you're a beginner, I don't feel like this is super clear for a beginner, and they might struggle with that. If you need additional support, I do have a tutorial here on the channel and on my blog to show you how to do that foundation double crochet. Okay. Then also at the back of the book, you're going to find more high-level information on things like finishing and seaming, blocking your work. And I felt like these sections really lacked detail necessary for a beginner. And the way I read the seaming instructions, if I'm like just ignoring all my existing knowledge, pretending that this is my first garment and just enacting on the seaming instructions as I'm reading them. And again, people read things differently. If I enacted these instructions based on the way I read them, my seams would be on the outside of my work. Now, beginners might not know how to sew, and I think giving them the tools to get the best finish on their sweaters is something I really wish would have been included. No one wants to spend all the time making a garment only for it to fall apart at the seams. You know, if you have a yucky looking seam, you're not going to want to wear it. So that added support would have just really elevated this in my opinion. And the information just for blocking also lacks the depth in order for a beginner to successfully go out and understand blocking and when and why you should do it. Overall, I think this is a really fun collection of filet crochet clothes for makers. These are some fun fashion pieces that are beautiful, and I really love that they're size inclusive, enabling makers to find a sweater that fits them or their recipient relatively easily. However, while the stitches and the use of thicker yarn might suggest that these designs are beginner friendly, the lack of support for makers new to garment making, which unfortunately most beginners are, leads me to recommend this book for intermediate to advanced level crocheters only due to the lack of support and level of assumed knowledge that most beginners don't possess yet because they just don't have the experience. So though if you are a beginner and you really want to make some beautiful garments and you don't mind some trial and error or looking things up online, then you might love this collection because the garments themselves, as we saw, are absolutely beautiful and they're worth checking out. And if you want to grab a copy of this book, I've linked to where you can find it in the description box below. Now, as I mentioned, I am giving away a copy of this book to one lucky winner. So head on over to my blog, theloopylamb.com, also linked in the description box below for you. And you'll find the written version of this review. And on that page, you'll also find a giveaway entry form and the full giveaway entry rules. If you have any questions about this book or experience that you'd like to share, please share it in the comments section below. I'll try to answer any questions that you may have. And I'd love to hear your experience with this book so our community can learn from your experience as well. So that's it for today. I hope that you enjoyed this review and you found it helpful. If you did, please hit that like button and please consider subscribing to this channel. Thanks so much for checking out my review of Filet Crochet to Wear. And if you like free crochet patterns, head on over to my blog, theloopylamb.com, where I've got over 200 free crochet patterns, many of which have step-by-step video tutorials. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Happy hooking, and I'll see you next time.